Hi, it's Earth Computer. Today I want to show you how you can build a lightning farm. This is actually much more simple than most people think. The base design I'm going to show you first is basically really simple, and then after that I'm going to show you little improvements you can make that can make it more efficient, but the improvements make it more complicated, so once you start feeling like it is too complicated, then you can stop watching at that point and you will still have a working farm. So let's jump right into it. The first thing you have to do is you have to obtain your world seed. There it is. Then you will have to download the latest version of the world seed manipulator tool. The links to this will be in the description. So you will be confronted by a GUI which looks something like this. There's a lot of options, you can ignore most of them, but obviously one you have to fill in is the world seed. I'm just going to paste this right in here. What's also very important is your exact position in the chunk. So I'm just going to align myself to some blocks here. As you can see, I'm aligned here, I can't move forwards. And this means I've got an exact position in the chunk. So if I press the F3 screen, this bit's a little bit tricky to find your exact position, but you can see here it says chunk 8 to 8. This means that I am 8 blocks into the chunk in the X and the Z. And it also means that like to find my exact position after the 8 blocks, to get the decimal point, the stuff after the decimal point, that's in my main coordinates, so I can see I'm 0.3 further than 8 blocks, so I'm 8.3 blocks into the chunk. I'm also 0.3 over here, but it's negative, so it says 0.7, but I'm 8.3, 8.3 inside this chunk. So now that you've found the exact position in the chunk, I'm just going to apply that here. Player pos in chunk 8.3, 8.3, and one final thing is the view distance. If you have something other than 12, then you need to change this, but mine's kept at 12, so I'm going to leave it. And then we stay in the lightning tab. We can select between getting the lightning to spawn trapped horses or charged creepers. Imagine most people would be interested in the trapped horses, so I've left that as the default. But if you're more interested in charged creepers, then you can change this. But I'm going to leave it at trapped horses for now. So I'm going to press search. And we've already found some locations, and it's already finished. So to see them, the best way to do it is to go into output. And there's a bunch of locations you can choose from here. I'm just going to go for the first one because it's closest. There's not really much difference between them for now. So this location is overworld coordinates between this place and this place. Anywhere between here you need to go. I also want to quickly take this opportunity to mention the About tab. It's got a list of all the amazing people who have helped with this, as well as a link to some other RNG manipulation videos. So these are the coordinates you have to go to. I'm just going to go to somewhere in the middle of them. So we're here, and it is quite far away from spawn. I'm going to be showing you later, towards the end of the video, how you can make it closer, but that does make it more complicated, so I'm going to leave it out for now. And what you want to do is, within the area here, you want to find a location where there is as little lava and as little grass to your west as possible. So I'm facing west right now. There's some grass over there, but that doesn't matter, it's to my east. And I'm just going to go into spectator mode, and I'm going to fly down so I can see the lava. And there's a lava lake there, so let's perhaps go over here a little bit. And there's still quite a lot of lava, isn't there? Maybe let's go a little bit. Let's just go here. The reason why you want to get rid of this lava, or the reason you want to avoid having lava to your west, is because you'll have to remove it all within like a certain distance. So I'm going to go here, and I'm just going to remove it all with a command later on, but you will have to move it all manually in your world. So I'm going to choose this chunk. So I've aligned myself in the chunk like before, and the next thing you want to do is you want to find the Valentich Area. So to do that, I'm going to go down to the bottom of the world, underneath the bedrock, and you want to fill in quite a reasonable sized area around you with leaves. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set game rule random tick speed to 0 so the leaves don't decay instantly, and then I'm also going to do game rule do tile drops false so that the leaves don't cause lag when they decay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in a decently sized square around with leaves. So you want this property here to be set so that the leaves decay. Actually, these should both be true, I'm sorry about that. So now for the fun part, we're going to turn up random tick speed to 100. And for random ticks to work, we also need to be in creative mode rather than spectator mode. And you can see all the leaves immediately starting to decay. There's some gravel falling, and we should get a nice circular but like also square shaped pattern around us. But before we move around, we want to like kind of make this pattern permanent. So let's fill in where the leaves were with maybe, or like where the air is, with gold blocks. So gold block 0 replace air, and that replaced the air over there, but the leaves still remain. And also let's replace, let's do the other 4, I mean the other 3 even. And because OCD, I'm going to replace the leaves as well back with bedrock. So finally, let's set the random tick speed back to normal, and let's reset the do tile drops game rule as well. And now we can fly around, and we have a nice circle of random tick blocks that we can use as a reference. So we want to go out a number of chunks corresponding to your render distance in the west direction for this design. For most designs it doesn't matter which direction you build it in, but for this one you will want to build it west. And we want to build a repeater line like this, so the easiest way to do that is to place a torch there. Actually no, let's place it here, and just go until the redstone runs out. It runs out here, and let's place a repeater, and we keep going like this. So we've reached the end. This chunk over here will be loaded by this machine. So if you haven't done it already, now would be a good time to remove all of the lava to your west. So I'm just going to do it with a command. You obviously have to do it in survival. Actually, I'm going to do it in MCEdit because the fill command limit's so stupidly low. So we're ready to test it out. So what I'm going to do to test this is we're just going to log out first. Everybody in the overworld before you start the farm has to log out. And then I'm going to log back in. You have to be the AFK player has to be the first player to log in. So once you've logged back in, all of the other players in the overworld can log back in again and do their stuff, but you can't move at all after this. I made a large stone platform with MCEdit. Hopefully now it will be easier to see where the lightning strikes with the fire that spawns on the platform. There was some over there. Just one thing I forgot to mention is that for this new type of skeleton horse farms, the old ones didn't need them, but they were kind of flawed. But the new ones, they require armor stands or some other entity to channel the lightning to. So this is a minimum layout for Armorstands. So just place down some Armorstands, and then the skeleton horses should be able to spawn. Or if you are not using skeleton horses, then no skeleton horses should spawn if you put down Armorstands. It appears we have our chunk right here. As you can see, already a lot of skeleton horses have spawned, but if you didn't select the skeleton horse thing in the tool, then you won't see any skeleton horses. You will just see normal lightning should have just spawned instead. So the reason I asked you to go west rather than any other direction is for unloading that chunk. So when you press this button, the redstone loads the chunk, and the chunk will stay loaded until the next autosave. But ideally, we don't want to have to wait until an autosave. In single player you can press escape, but in multiplayer that's not an option. So instead what you do is you just go this way by one chunk, and then you go back again, and you realign yourself like this, no need to relog, and then you can press the button again and it will reload the chunk, and then you can repeat like this. So this is actually everything for the compulsory part of the tutorial. You could build a contraption here to collect the horses, maybe you could build something over there to move the player back and forth, but yeah, from now on it's optional. So the first improvement that could be made is, instead of just loading one chunk, you can load a whole bunch of chunks, and that will get lightning to spawn over and over again more than once. So I've got here, when this is the end, I want to split in both directions and go 12 chunks in that direction and 12 chunks in that direction. In order that I don't load the two chunks in the same game tick, which is useless, I've got the piston over there, which when chained with this piston takes 3 game ticks to extend, and this repeater takes 2 game ticks to turn on, so there's a 1 game tick delay there. So just to show you how much more OP it is with the improvements, I'm going to change the weather to thunder, and I'm going to press the button, and a whole bunch more like horses should spawn over there just from a single button press. So if I can press it once, see how much longer that stayed on, and if I go over here, a whole bunch have spawned just from that button press. And of course you can still go back and forth to keep pressing it over and over again. To improve the farm further, we're going to take a look at the lightning farm that we built on the ProtoTech server, see if we can take inspiration from it. So we have, underneath these rails, we have an autosave detector, and so this is basically going to sync this clock we have down here with the autosave cycle. So this clock is a 900 game tick clock. There's a lot of repeaters, and yeah, every 900 game ticks, these rails, or one of these rail lines, will trigger, and they are going to trigger this chunk loading system we have over here. And so we load 450 chunks, which is 1 chunk every 2 game ticks. And so basically we're going to have a lightning spawn up there every 2 game ticks. This autosave detector is a lag-friendlier version of Woot's autosave detector. This one's designed by EDDxample, and there will be a link to it in the description. To save on lag, we use rails rather than redstone dust, because redstone dust is one of the main lag causes in redstone, and it's always best to use rails where you can. Some of this stuff here that you see is a little bit complicated. You don't necessarily need to have 2 rails, you can have 1. I'll explain why there's 2 later, but you could literally just have a clock running into a bunch of chunks, and that should work. There's also nothing stopping you going all the way to 900 chunks. We just haven't done that here because we don't need to, but get away. Now there's just one tiny bit of efficiency left to squeeze out of the system, There's a problem with just using one rail at the start here, is that 900 chunks take 9 game ticks to unload, not just one, which means that when you fire in the next signal, you will have the first few observers loading or trying to load chunks that are already loaded, which means that the RNG doesn't get reset for that tick and you will lose some efficiency. So to solve that problem, literally you're only saving like a tiny bit of efficiency by doing this. You have 2 lines coming in, and you have there's a T flip-flop on the other side of the autosave detector. There's the T flip-flop, and they go into 2 different lines which load 2 different sets of initial chunks every other autosave, so we're always guaranteed to be loading unloaded chunks at the start. So we're not satisfied on ProtoTech with the default thunder frequency. The default thunder frequency is 1.4%, and we have set up this bed here so that if you sleep in it, it will load some faraway chunks that when you wake up, the RNG manipulate the thunder off time. So what that means is the thunder is only going to stay off for 10 minutes, and it's going to stay on for like a little bit longer than that, which means that the thunder rate now will be 55%, which is obviously going to make the farm a lot more efficient. So now for the elephant in the room. This massive area of lava here, as you can see there's a lot of it, and what this is doing is it is causing lots of random ticks and advancing the RNG quite a bit. And I'm not going to explain how you find out how much lava to place and where today. I think that can be for another tutorial because it's quite complicated. But what I am going to explain is another way you can make this farm closer to spawn, and that is with dispensers. To allow your farm to be closer to spawn, make sure this advancer thing here is switched to dispenser. You could also use lava, but I haven't told anyone how to do that yet, so leave it dispenser for now. Max advances is the maximum number of dispensers you're willing to place. So I've set it to 10,000. If you want to get it closer to spawn, then you have to set this quite high, unfortunately. But lava, there is not nearly as much effort involved. So once you have modified the settings like this, you press search again, which I've already done, and then you get an output of something like this. And then you can see that the region here is much closer to spawn, but there's this advances thing. This is not equal to 0 anymore. This is equal to 7,238, and that's the number of dispensers you will have to place. And in fact, it's not the number of dispensers, it's the number of dispensers per manipulation. So if you're having like a dispenser hopper cycle which would last 8 game ticks, you would need to place 8 times this many dispensers. So that's how many resources you need to gather. So what you want to build is something like this. You have a dispenser here with an item inside of it, and it's going to fire an item into this hopper, and the hopper is going to pass the item back into the dispenser. When you power it, the item gets fired into the world, and the hopper then picks it up and then puts it back into the dispenser. It's very important that it's a dispenser and not a dropper, because the dropper would just put the item directly into this hopper. So in our case, we need to multiply this up by 7,000 odd, and since dispensers can only be triggered every 4 game ticks and hoppers can only be feeding items every 8 game ticks, if we want one thing every game tick, then yeah, we're going to have 8 times 7,000, so that we can have like 8 of these in parallel. So that's it for the tutorial. In future tutorials there'll probably be something on the lava advances, and there may also be something on the weather manipulator as well, although I'm not sure that's going to be on my channel. And yeah, expect more RNG manipulation videos.